Welcome everybody to this video on for loops in Python on iterables. So previously we looked at how to use for loops but only when using ranges. What we're going to do first is we're going to review that. So keep in mind what we were doing is we would say for num in range where our first number was inclusive and our last number was exclusive. This would create a range object which would go through 1, 2, 3, and 4. We will go through these one by one and print them out, and this would give us each of the numbers in that range. Now this is great if we're trying to deal with something with numbers, but if we want to deal with something else, we want to do this in a different method than using range. So what we're going to look at is for loops using iterable types. In other words, something that is non-primitive, something that can be broken down into a smaller type. Since when we do this, we're not accessing the index numbers of a character in a string, we are going to be accessing the characters directly in order. So what I'm going to do is create a for loop, but this time instead of putting a range, I am going to put something that is iterable in some way. In other words, it is not primitive, something that I can go through one by one, such as hello. So if I type in for char in hello, what this will do is iterate through the string hello, letter by letter. The first time through the loop, char will be equal to h. The second time through, char will be equal to e. The third time through, char will be equal to l. The fourth time through will be equal to the other l. And finally, the last time through, it will be equal to the o. If I print char, what will happen is it will output each of these individual letters, but on different lines since they are different print statements. Like so. Now let's look at a different example. I'm going to use a word called hello there. Instead of putting a string here, I'm going to use a variable. This also works since the variable will just be replaced with a string value of hello there. What I'm going to do differently this time, of course, though, is I'm going to print this out, but on the same line. Obviously, this does the exact same thing as if I were just to print word, but this is just to show an example of what will happen if I do this one by one. You'll also notice that there's no new line at the end of this, since I don't have a new line character after any of these letters. So it is slightly different from printing hello there. What I can do is I will just add an empty print statement after my loop. Now it would do the exact same thing as if I were just to print the variable word. The last thing we're going to look at is using counters. So counters are ways to count through a loop, either to figure out where in the loop we are, or to tally up things inside the loop. We will look at these more in the next video about nested loops. For now, we're just going to keep track of how many times our loop has run. So what I'm going to do here is accidentally do counter twice, but let's ignore that. What I'm going to do here, though, is do a for char in word. So this is going to go through hello there. And I'm going to increase my counter by 1 every time I go through this loop. So in other words, it will tell us which iteration of the loop we are in. So in other words, when we are in our first iteration of our loop, counter will be equal to 1. So I will print out the counter each time. And if I run this, you will notice that I have the numbers of each iteration. So since hello there has 11 characters, 5 for hello, 5 for there, and 1 for the space, I'm going to get 11 different iterations, each with a number on it. This is a way of keeping track of which iteration we're on, which can be very helpful. It also means that if I were to increase the counter after my print statement, the counter at my print statement would actually represent the indexes of each of those letters. This can also be very helpful when it comes to grabbing specific data from something, or when it comes to replacing it. Last but not least, I'm going to print out how long the word is. By using this, I also could have obviously used len, which is a much better way, but this is an example of things that for loops can do on a very primitive level.